Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing a project called Queen Anne's Lace. We have Keenan here working the camera.
Keenan is here.
And this project is inspired by cyanotypes.
Oh.
Which, if you have no idea what that is, our mixed media artist created an entire course about it if you're interested.
Yep.
But this was, as someone who shares a studio, being surrounded by cyanotypes for a long time, this just like came out of me.
It crept in and
I'm like,
came out.
why do I want to paint everything navy with white? So, but this is really fun technique. I'm excited to show you how to do it. And we're going to do this in 4 steps. So our very first step is we're just going to do a background wash using a dark blue / navy color. Our second step is we are going to put in flowers. Our third step is we are going to put in the stems and leaves. And the very last step is just using our gold acrylic ink for details. Okay, for the supplies, I have space blue, tangerine, rose red, bleed proof white, and we also have our gold ink here, which is an acrylic ink. So please make sure you rinse your brushes very well after using this paint because it is acrylic. Brushes. We have around 2, around 6, and our 1-inch wash. Sorry, I have some gold paint along the ferrule. Okay. There is no outline with this project.
Oh.
So we're just going for it. And this is in line with this is part of our Wabi Sabi box, which is all about appreciating the beauty that is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. So we're gonna go, just go for it. And I'm gonna show you how to drop in color towards a wet background, let that diffuse out, that kind of stuff. Sweet. So it's just playful, fun, bright. And I want to say a thank you to Jessie for letting us use her beautiful cyanotype in the background.
Thanks, Jessie.
Thanks, Jessie. She doesn't know that we're using it. But thank you. Okay, we ready? We gotta do our oath. If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you, and I love starting that way because especially with this theme of this box, we are allowing ourselves the freedom to explore and play and appreciate the imperfect aspects of our paintings, which is just a joy and something we don't do nearly enough. Okay, so I'm gonna start by mixing a dark navy background. Oh, I forgot to say, if you want salt, I'm gonna use a little bit of salt for the background. So if you have some, my favorite is McCormick's Sea Salt Grinder. That's my favorite salt I use. Mm-hmm. So.
It's good on steak too.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna take my space blue. I'm gonna take a touch of rose red. That's gonna create like a very strong purple. So I'm gonna take some tangerine, introduce that in there. That's gonna make that like a reddish brown. So let's grab some more blue. Now we got more of a purple again. Let's grab more blue. Now we're talking. This is still reading a little bit too purple, so I'm gonna grab more tangerine. Tangerine leans yellow, right? And the opposite of purple is yellow. So if you wanna tone purple color down, add yellow to it. The closest thing to yellow that I have on my palette is the tangerine, so that's what I'm adding to it. And you can see it kind of now turned a gray color instead of a purpley color. So I'm gonna do more space blue. And I'm just gonna squirt it right into the middle. And that's how we create like a dark value blue. There we go. And of course you can test it on your scratch paper. And if you're not sure what the undertones color are, add water to it. So that's kind of more like a gray purple blue. So I'm gonna do a little bit more space blue in there. There we go, that reads more blue to me. Okay. And I'm just gonna have some clean space blue on the ready. but I want this to be really, really dark. Now I do want to call out that we're gonna do step 1 into step 2 like really quickly because it matters if the paint is wet or dry. So I'm gonna be moving fast, okay? Just wanna warn you, we're just gonna go for it.
Go for it, speedy.
Speedy, quick.
Go.
Go.
Fast.
Okay, we're gonna take our 1-inch wash, and as you can see, I'm gonna do an imperfect edge around here, which is actually really fun. So I taped off my border, but I am not painting all the way to my tape. I'm essentially gonna create a rectangle within my tape because I really want that unfinished edge. Okay? Here we go. So sometimes I'll just make the shape and then I'll fill it in. So we're gonna be using a lot of paint. If it's easier for you to wet the area first and then drop in your color, sometimes I'll do that. So I'm kind of just using water to spread out what I've put down. And then while it's wet like this, I'm gonna pick up lots of paint and put it down. And if you need to reshape your edge to get it straighter, it doesn't have to be perfect, just do your best. And you can feel that my paper is starting to buckle, that's okay. And then I just kind of want to square off. And if you want like a rough edge, then you just dry your brush before you straighten it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Salt. Great. Now we're gonna move on to our bleed proof white almost immediately. I'm gonna grab my 6. You can also use no, we're not gonna use our 2 yet. I'm just gonna use my 6. I'm gonna grab bleed proof white. And then in the middle, I'm just gonna dot. And you're gonna see, because my blue is wet, this white is kind of diffusing out. And that's what we want. And it's actually turning like a light blue.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Isn't that a pretty color?
It's turning blue.
So keep dotting. And essentially I'm gonna make an oval kind of shape. Now if you have, I mean, what are we in March? I don't know if we would have any Queen Anne's lace.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe not here.
But if you do, you're welcome to use some. Okay, I wanna call something out really quick. So I mixed a lot of red into my mixture, and where the salt is moving the colors, it's turning pink.
Cool.
Which is really cool. I didn't anticipate that happening, but I kind of love it. Now,
whoa.
Sometimes in watercolor, like I've noticed this where like when we mix multiple colors together, as it dries, sometimes those colors separate a little bit and we get these hints of some of the mixed colors by themselves. That is something that I've learned to appreciate and not be mad at. If that bothers you, then when you mix your blue, just see if you can use just space blue. And if you want to make it darker, see if you have like a black or a Payne's gray. It will create like a gray blue, but then when it lightens, it won't turn into another color. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I should do another blue wash on top or just go with it?
I think that's up to you. I think it looks cool myself.
I mean, it's definitely reading more purple.
It is.
Is that bad?
I don't know that.
I don't think it's bad.
I don't either.
I'm just wondering how the gold is gonna look.
Purple and gold looks dope.
I wanna see something.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna try what would happen if I just do blue on top of it. Just straight space blue.
Okay.
Okay, now warning, we already put bleed proof white here, so I can't touch around this area very much 2, I'm gonna mess up all my salt textures. But I honestly just wanna see if you can help control it when the colors separate a little bit. So I'm gonna just do blue right on top. Now the little salt is smearing around.
It's gonna look cool though.
I can hear it in my brush. I feel like it's being like, help me.
We are here, we are here,
Stop
we are
moving
here.
me.
I did not sign up for this.
I was gonna be on a steak. Okay, I added a little bit of tangerine to my mixture to see if the orange/yellow would tone down the purple.
You got a little bit of the bleed-proof white.
Ooh.
And it looks super cool.
Okay, that actually does look cool. I'm not even mad about that.
Kind of looks like you're framing a brain on this page now.
Should we smear more on purpose?
Maybe. Will it? Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, completely different project today.
Listen, this is pre-paint time. What are we even doing here? Okay, I'm gonna do one more. Now I wanna call out, I am not adding a lot of water to this paint, which means that I'm probably gonna get some like fuzzy edges and stuff like that because this is condensed, right? Mm. Like usually you add water to lighten it, but I just want it to stay that. Okay, that feels more blue, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Lots.
And you can feel my paper is really starting to be mad at me by how much it's warping. But I'm just gonna
ignore it.
Ignore it. It's kind of like when your mom is doing the dishes and you just put your dirty bowl in the sink while she's doing it. And I'm gonna keep going. Did you ever do that?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I would say something like, what's wrong?
I don't understand why you're mad.
What do we do? I gotta go.
I got something I gotta do. Okay. Okay, that feels more blue to me. So you can do another layer. Let's just see how that dries though. And let's see what happens when I salt it again. All right. Now take that bleed proof white and that 6. Okay, so I have one up here and then I have one over here. This one is gonna kind of curve up a little bit, almost like a U. See that white? It's just gonna kind of like bleed into that blue background. It's beautiful. And then we have a little guy over here as if it's just about to start blooming. Let's make this bigger. Now, depending on how wet or dry your background is, your bleed proof white is gonna react differently. If it's dry, then your white is gonna just stay its shape. It's not really gonna diffuse out. And I feel like I need to round out the bottom. Cool. And I don't know if you can see that close up, but whatever is happening on the edge over here is just really beautiful. I am seeing a little bit of pink and purple peek through, but I'm not mad. It's basically happening wherever I put the salt. So if you don't like that color peeking through, maybe then just avoid salt.
I like the purple. It's cool.
Yeah. Okay, and then another little guy over here. Now at this point, a lot of my paper is dry. Okay, so basically I'm just looking at where there are these like blooms and just kind of starting to put them in. But this is not the only time we're touching them. Essentially what we're doing is we are dropping in the bleed proof white while our background is wet, letting that diffuse and move and make interesting values and marks. And then we'll go back in when our painting is dry and do detail lines, stems, things like that, and kind of control and reshape some of the flowers if we need to. Okay? Can you look at my paper towel for a second? Gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
The paper towel. There.
I definitely thought I did.
You definitely...
I could still see it.
Okay.
For me. I was like, this is gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna take my heated craft tool and dry my paper, or you can let it air dry. Okay, where I smeared the bleed proof white, do you see that?
Yes.
So cool. Love it. Gosh, that just makes my mind go with like, you could do so many things like that.
Yep. I'm picturing things traveling through some form of space, like an area. It's like movement.
Or I think of like, you know how when you're looking through, like when it's raining and you're looking through like a steamy glass window and some things are smeared?
Yes.
Because it's through the fog, and then some of them are clear.
Yeah, crispy.
Wouldn't that be cool if you did like a painting as if it was through one of those windows and you use that like smear technique for like the fuzzy parts?
That would be sweet.
That would be so cool.
You could even do like, or a frame.
A what?
I'm seeing on the piece of paper a picture frame with small details, but the glass is smeared. And behind the picture frame is the images that the glass is looking at.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Nope, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's difficult for me I'm just a visual person.
So you can explain.
You can explain all you want. You can write it down and I will read it. I will still not be able to see it.
Show me what you mean.
Show me what you draw it. Paint it, and then I will know what you mean. I feel like that's why I struggle with like product development so much, because they're like, well, what do you want? I'm like, well, what will it look like? They're like, that's up to you. And I'm like, well, I can't decide until I know what it's going to look like. And we just go back and forth. I'm like, send me a sample, send me a sample. They're like, it's the same thing, but in green. I'm like, no.
No, you don't
I got to see it in green.
What do you mean? When you say green, what do you mean? Show me what green is. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, the fun aspect of this, and I have done a lot of florals this last year, and I'm working on more floral things, hint, 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 hint. And a lot of what I really enjoyed doing was playing with things that are in the background and fuzzy, and then like sharp and focused in the foreground. And so a lot of my like floral paintings, or some of them, like I'll do backgrounds and I'll let the background color smear with my floral, so the edges are like kind of diffusing out, but then like the front of the flower or whatever stays sharp and in focus. And it kind of just is fun to play with those like focus feelings.
Yeah.
So that's kind of also what we're going for here with this project. Okay, so for the most part, this is dry. There are a couple areas that are still wet, but I'm not touching those, so I should be okay. I have my round 2, and I'm gonna use my bleed proof white. Now again, you guys are getting a smaller container. It's probably gonna look like this, but you should have plenty of bleed proof white. If it's dry, just add a little bit of water to it and it will come back. And then using this clean white on a dry paper and my 2, you see how much like whiter that is?
Yeah.
That's what we want. So not only are we playing with sharpness in our mark making, but in the values itself. So along the edges here, I'm gonna just kind of do smaller. And if you look at Queen Anne's lace, which is actually a wild carrot, they're in the carrot family. Did you know that? Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Each little thing has like a ton of little like flowers on it kind of thing. So they have like groupings. And sometimes they're so close together that you can't really tell. And then sometimes they're spread out that you can see the groupings a little bit more. That's why it's kind of like an uneven edge. Gosh, I love this like soft blue next to the white. I'm gonna do some more white just on the front here. So if we're thinking about this thing that's kind of turning away from us, what we're closest to is that edge in the front of those flowers. So that's where I wanna keep it nice and white and sharp. And then like the back, and as it's turning away, we can lose some of that. We want that to kind of fade away. Now for people who put salt on their painting, I still have salt. I just paint on top of it. But if you want to like wipe it off before you do these details, you can. Just make sure your paper is dry before you try and smear it. Doesn't that look dimensional?
Totally.
It's up to you how far you go with the white. I just like to go until it feels like I should stop.
Is that true?
No, because I always am like, stop playing with it, and I keep playing with it. Okay, that feels good. I'm gonna give it a second. I'm gonna move on to this guy up here. So this one, it's kind of more like the individual things. So we're looking at it, but it's not as full as this one, and they're kind of like coming curved out. Does that make sense? So it's almost like here is my stem, and these are kind of like doing this. And then you put the little... These are such a beautiful plant. They grow wild along our the road to our house, and it's just like, just beautiful.
They look good in a bouquet too.
Yeah. Isn't that, oh gosh, I love that. Okay, so that feels good. I'm gonna leave that for a second. And then this guy, it's almost like one is still tight, like it hasn't fully spread and bloomed out yet. So all of the blooms are still there. They're just tiny, compact, right? And then the stems, I kind of feel like I'm painting a cage sometimes, you know? They kind of like gather.
Oh.
Like that.
Oh, I can see the cage feel.
And then, so you can like, there's a bunch of different stages of blooms, right? Like sometimes they're really tight and then they eventually spread out nice, full and big, like that kind of thing. And then when they start to die, they kind of like keep going out the opposite, like, rah. So it's up to you the stages of your Queen Anne's lace in bloom. I wanted to do a bunch of different stages just to kind of show you the options, but know that you can decide. Okay, so I feel good about that. I'm gonna leave that for a second, and now I'm gonna think about where I wanna put my stems. So your stems placement might be different than mine because there's no outline with this, right? So your flowers themselves can be in different places. For me, I'm gonna have this kind of curve up here. This one, it makes sense that this can keep going this way, and maybe this will come up here, okay? Boop, boop. So I like to do like, even though I'm not making a mark on my paper, I like to envision it. So here, here, and then this one I'm gonna have coming up this way, but be careful, because with the stem coming up this way, if it's too close to the center, it will look like it's the stem for this head. And I don't want that. So this one, see how too close to that center that is? Yep. On the reference photo? If it could be confusing to our eye. So I noticed that on my reference photo after I painted it. So I'm gonna move my stem this way. So then it comes way more clear what head belongs to what stem, and then have that come out this way, okay?
Cool.
Now, if you want to give it a tiny bit of color, you can mix a little bit of that tangerine and blue in there to give it a green. Let's see what it looks like with just white. So I have bleed proof white. I'm gonna go with my stem going this way. And sometimes I like to just practice the movement before I put my pen down, okay? There we go. And then this is gonna come out here. And you can make it as thin or thick as you want. For me, I always bend reality a little bit and go for a thinner stem because I just like the look of that aesthetically. But it's up to you. This is your painting. And then here we got to put our little cage.
Cage.
And sometimes you have like a rogue one, like out here. Boop.
Nice.
Yeah. Now it feels like 2 arms, so I got to do a couple more.
Hey.
We just got to add to it a little bit to just kind of eliminate that illusion. There we go. Okay, and then this stem, I'm gonna have coming up this way, like this. So again, just kind of doing the movement a couple times to practice my placement. I am having all of them come from like this middle section right here at the bottom, but this is your painting. You can have them come off the edges, whatever you want. Okay. And if the first line isn't perfect, you can always go back and add to it. Okay. And then this guy. So I like to do the movement because I like to see, like, does that angle make sense? So you have to think about the angle of the flower head and just be like, I wouldn't probably start the stem down here because then I would have to like curve it back this way for that head angle to make sense. So I have to think about like a continuous line and just envision the center of the stem. Like personally, I feel like this angle is off from this head because if I were to continue this stem here, this would actually be the middle. And the middle of my thing is actually over here. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if it's slightly off, it's not a big deal, but that's why I kind of like to think about, okay, if the stem were to keep going, imagine it goes right through the middle of your painting at that angle. Does that angle make sense? I said middle of your painting, I meant middle of your flower head. So envisioning that, this is my middle. So then it would kind of go down here, okay? And then they have these like little boop, spiky things that kind of come out. This one we probably wouldn't be able to see as much. Okay. And sometimes, like, let's say you put your stem in and the angle is just too off. Sometimes you can add more to your flower to like adjust it. I'm not gonna do that though, but like that's what my brain is telling me to do, where I'm like, just add more and just make it bigger. But sometimes that can turn into something bigger than you want it to be, you know?
If you keep messing with it?
It becomes a larger problem than the initial one. Okay, now for our leaves that we kind of have going on here, they're kind of like, they kind of remind me of fingers. So if I'm doing, if this is my stem here, they kind of like come out and then it's like, and they have little things off of them. Do you see that shape?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we're doing our leaves. But again, this is your painting. Sometimes if I don't like, if I'm like doing a flower and I don't like its leaf, I'll just like put a leaf on it that I do like.
Change
it. And if it's not for something like totally accurate, then it really doesn't matter. You can also, remember, this is wild carrot and it's thin, so sometimes it curls, right? Like sometimes you have like a lot of movement going on there too. So don't be afraid to add like a strong little wacha in there. Oh. And I'm gonna add a stem to this guy, like that. And is this Queen Anne's lace? No. Would it actually be coming off the stem? Nope.
If you put it there.
This is where I am taking liberties as an artist and just adding. I felt like it needed another shape besides these round ones. I felt like I needed longer, skinny, round. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then we can have, let's say we have the leaf kind of come up this way. And again, like, why not do one of those? I love those leaves, like long, skinny.
Yeah, those look good.
They're beautiful. So sometimes I'll just put them in there because I like them. I'm gonna do, so obviously I'm going a little bit off script here than what I did in my reference, but just do what feels right. Okay, I'm also looking at my flower, and this stem feels slightly more to the right than it needs to be. Do you see that? Like if I could, I would just move it right there, and that would feel more lined up. So I'm just going to widen the right-hand side to show you that you can center something.
After the fact.
After the fact. Now, if you're just like, well, what about these really soft, fuzzy edges? We did that when the background was wet. How do we put those back in? You can't put them back into the same effect, but what you can do is water down your bleed-proof white so it's not as opaque, so you'll get like a lighter blue color. It's not going to diffuse as nicely, but it won't be as bright, and that's the goal. So if this is my center, then this needs to be moved up here. So basically, again, you're just watering it down. Some of them you can keep bright, right? Okay, that feels better to me.
Good range. It's got a good range on that one.
Okay, that feels more centered. All right, we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna do a leaf kind of coming up this way, but like one of these guys. Sometimes I like to let my line skip and just do like dashes and dots, because when things get like really thin, we don't always see a continuous line. I'm gonna leave some room for my gold accents. I wanna keep doing these like leaves, but I wanna leave some for gold. I also wanna do some just bright white marks on these guys that we did while it was wet. Okay, now we have to think, where does this guy come in? I could just have him come this way, or I can just start a new stem. That's what I'm gonna do. Boop.
Those were good practice swings.
Thank you. And I want to do, I'm gonna add like, maybe there's a little flower bud kind of coming out this way. I'm really going off script here, but it feels right.
It looks right.
Oof. Oh. Okay. And now what we can do, if you're feeling good about where you've put things in the placement, you can also use this gold acrylic paint as an accent, just for fun. I mean, one of my favorite things is gold and like this dark navy together. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna do some, you can do little gold accents on top of some of these blooms, especially with like the long skinny ones. And you can just put it over top the white. I'm not letting it dry. You can. The only thing is when you don't let it dry, sometimes the gold will pick up some of the white and then it won't be like a thick acrylic, like opaque. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see, yeah.
I'm gonna do a couple of the leaves. So I'm gonna do one like that. Let's do something coming off here. I feel like I need one up here.
That gold was meant to be comboed with these colors.
Right? Doesn't that look good?
That looks so good.
And I think I might do one long white leaf right here. I just feel like in my reference, I had another little guy coming this way, but I don't feel like I have enough room for that. So I'm gonna take my bleed proof white and just do that. There we go.
Nice.
So pretty. If you want to reshape some, you can. Now it's just kind of fun, just playing around. I actually really love how this one turned out. Down here.
I like how open it is.
Yeah. I mean, that was the one where it was looking like two guys, or two arms popping out.
Hey.
So that was a happy accident that I love. Kind of love how that turned out. Well, that's our project.
Wow.
And know that this is one way that you can approach it. Another way that I approached doing Queen Anne's lace with like a cyanotype inspired background is I actually use a masking fluid marker or a drawing gum marker like the Pabio that we have used before, and I drew the Queen Anne's lace, let that dry, and then I did a dark navy blue wash all over it, and then you rub off the gum, and so then the white of the paper shows through after. Similar to what we did with the tape, but except it's like drawing form tape.
Which did you prefer?
Well, the wonderful thing about that is it's like easier, but I love that I was able to get two different values by putting the bleed proof white in while the blue was still wet. So you can't do that with the drawing gum. But if you really like the look of cyanotypes, but you're not sure you want to do with like the chemicals and stuff like that, you can get a very similar feel. It's a different process, and you can't consider this a cyanotype. But if you like that look, you can paint it, or you can use the gum Arabic, or if you want to learn, we actually have a course available if you're interested. So
very fun.
Yeah, super fun, very cool, but I just love this. I mean, like, think about, what if you did one of these for your kids and it's like their birth flower or something?
Oh, that would be cool.
And you can frame it in their room or like that kind of stuff. Like, play with it. Think of ways that just the silhouette of something can be all that you need, and you can use this same technique. So, thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you had a fun time. I hope you allowed yourself to let go and play. And then I also hope you allow yourself to daydream. What can you do with this? Where can this go? What if you added this color instead of this color? All of that. This is just a starting point, and I want you guys to run. So if you are on Facebook, you can join our community. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. It's a large group, but very supportive, and you can see what other people are painting. If you're on Instagram, you can tag us at Let's Go Make Art. # Let's Make Art. And if you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. Thank you guys. Bye.